Okay, last time I didn't read it in. Today I'm going to read you the Ramah on Halacha Hey, because that's what we're going to be talking about the Ramah today. So we didn't read it, I'll read it inside. V'yeshamim. So the Mechaber had described Hey Mafresh Challah. Dalet and Hey last time. Okay. And the Mechaber had explained Hey Mafresh Challah. In Eretz Yisrael and near Eretz Yisrael and Chutzor, the different ways and how many challahs and all kinds of things. We spoke about that last time. But the Ramah says, V'yeshamim, Kivin she'en challah nechalas b'zman hazeh Eretz Yisrael. Since Eretz Yisrael they don't eat challah, they eat the challah at all. So Gam B'Shar B'Kamis Ein Tzrichen LaHafrashah Challah Achas or Sarfa. You only have to mafresh one challah and you burn it. You don't have to mafresh two challahs. V'chein haminik pasha b'chol medinas elu she'em mafish rak challah achas. Below shear, you mafresh one challah, the tiniest amount. No shear time. You have to give no 1/48th and 24th. The sarfin also k'moy shahoy oisin k'shnot v'shtei challahs. Shechalas or loy hoy shear. You take this a tiny amount and you mafresh on your challah or. We spoke about that last time. Why the Ramah says you do that? Okay. Then the Ramah says, "Umikol no you can lead to Kezayis." The minig is that you, even though the din is you could take even a mashu, the minig is to take a Kezayis. That's what we'll talk about in a minute. Then the Ramah says something I mentioned last time. If a person eats challah in chutzaret, mevarach tchila al hamin shoytz lacha. First you make hamaitzi or mezainis, depending on what the food is. Va'achakach mevarach hasher kedeshana b'kdishasa shel Aaron v'tzivonu lecha truma. And then you make a bracha because you're eating truma. So you make that bracha.
So Ramah speaking?
The Ramah speaking. Yeah. I mentioned this last time. That Ramah says that. Yeah, that's going to be in Shulchan Ches. Why is it the word truma? V'yeshamim. Some people say yishasarfen la'challah oisnu lahesek b'fnei atzma. You make its own fire. The Yisrael also lehanus mimenu. A zor is not allowed to have hana from the challah, the burning challah. We throw it into the oven before we burn the bread. I'm going to talk about that at the end. Okay, we're in the middle. Okay, so the last time we spoke about why the Ramah says you should take just a mashu. He doesn't do the two challahs and that whole thing. Why he doesn't want that? Fine. Where did this part come from? That the Ramah says that the minig is lito Kezayis. What's a Kezayis? Either you should take the 24th or 48th or mashu. But where does this come from? That it says v'noyigin v'kamak noyigin lito Kezayis. Where's the makor to do such a thing? So the in parentheses it says here that it comes from a Maril, which in fact it does, and the Maril says it comes from Rashi. Okay, so I searched some Bible to try to find where would Rashi say this, and I found two different places that where it's brought from Rashi, not Rashi like on the Gemara. Okay, others from that are yuchas to Rashi. Okay, one is in the Siddur of Rashi. He says something. This is a significant thing. It's going to come up in Shin Chav Ches. This question about what you call this stuff, is that Rashi says is when the Kezayis that you're mafresh, you should do this and this and this with it. Okay, it's like in the middle. It's like in mamash, like in passing. It says the Kezayis that you're mafresh, you should do whatever. I'm not telling you what the whatever is because that has to do with Shin Chav Ches. Okay, but the Kezayis that you're mafresh, you blah 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 blah, whatever you're supposed to do with it. Okay, that's not a very strong mashmois. It's just like mamash saying it in passing. But there's a tshuva in Rashi. Where it says like this: V'shalus Rabbeinu, about 20 words, the whole thing. V'shalus Rabbeinu, kama shir challah ha'or. How much do you have to be mafresh for a challah ha'or? That's what we do. The challah ha'or means the challah that you burn. V'am Rabbeinu lanu. Now there's words missing here, so I'm gonna keep a challah she'on anosim l'koyin havishir blank. There are missing words here. When you give it to a koyin, you have to give a certain amount. Okay, there's missing words. What the right answer is? Oh, l'nachtim echad b'mches. Yeah, they're missing words. No, they're missing words. Obviously, it doesn't read straight. Just for this part, is not the important part. If it's a baker, he gives 1/48. So when you're giving it to the kohen, there's a shear. A 24th if you're a regular person, a 48th if you're a baker. But if you have a chalas or, you should give a Kezayis. Okay, so that now you could have read that this Shuvin Rashi to be la dafka, because actually just needed any minimal amount. You could have read it to be that. You could potentially have read it like that. The Maril didn't. Okay, the Maril says when he quotes this Rashi says the Kasa Rashi the Shur Kezayis, and then the Maril says the who kachatzi beitzis tanagolos. Okay, so he tells you he needs it's for real. Like a Kezayis means a half of a kabeya. So he's taking mamash like for real, which is fine. I mean, presumably if Rashi would have wanted to say you take a mashu, he would have used what Chazal say, what we saw in Shulchan Aruch, it's kesayra. When they want to say you could take anything, they call it sa'ir, like a piece of barley. When you're saying a Kezayis, what do you have to make up his own name for the Kezayis? What do you have to come up with that from? Obviously, he thinks that he's trying to say something more than just anything. So he's saying you should take a Kezayis. Okay. So very nice. So that's the Makar. It comes from Rashi. Okay. But what's the reason? I told you I'm a card to it. The Maral says it, the Maral says it's Ramashi, and here we see Rashi says it. Okay, fine. What's the reason for that? What's the reason why you should take a Kezayis? What should be again, it could be a 24th, or 48th, or a Mashu, but what's Kezayis? Kezayis seems just random. So I have two possibles. I didn't see anybody explaining this. I don't see anybody giving, maybe one of you know, but I didn't see anyone explaining it. I have two thoughts as to what the answer might be.
Well, the Kashrus that Kezayis is inconsistent with the other measurement units used to determine.
No, the shear, according to the Torah, is you can give anything. And the way Chazal call it, they can give even a piece of barley, even the tiniest amount. Then the Chacham made a din d'Rabbanan that you have to give either a 24th of your batter or a 48th of your batter, depending on who you are.
Right.
So, but those are all reasonable choices. But what would be the choice to say, give a Kezayis? Or where would that come from? Like, what would be the basis to, it's like Rashi made up his own share. Where did he come up with it?
Right.
We're trying to understand why did he say that. So, one possibility is, we saw, the first time we spoke about Hilchos Challah, we saw the name Yehuda says, from a Sifri, he thinks that it's a deraisa, that the Sifri says that when you do the Nesina to a Kohen, you have to give the Kohen a Kedei Nesina, that's how he calls it. You have to give it a Kedei Nesina, a significant amount, something that's worthwhile to give, okay? So the Yehuda has his own cheshbon for what he thinks a Kedei Nesina is. He has his whole cheshbon. He doesn't have a right to it. He just says, I would think that it could be the following, and he gives a suggestion. But it can zayin that when we say you have to give a Kedei Nesina, for lots of shurim in the Torah, a Kezayis is a significant amount. You have to give the Kohen something. If the Sifri means it with the rice or with the Rabban, you have to give him something like of significance. Don't give him a piece of barley. Give him something of significance. So saying you should give him a Kezayis, that's a reasonable possibility. Maybe Rashi is coming from that, some kind of a thing like that. Related to that is the Aruch Shulchan has this amazing cheshbon. Okay? He says the reason why he thinks, he's not talking about the Kezayis. He says the reason why you need a 24th or 48th is because it works out that if you give that much, it's worth a shavar pruta. He makes a whole calculation that it's worth a shavar pruta. Now, magically, whether it's a 24th or a 48th, it's still shavar pruta. Okay? That's mamash like, when they say, Talmudic, hair splitting. Imagine that it could be a 24th or a 48th, and it's still worth a Kezayis, either one. Okay? You have to do it all.
Nice worth more. Right.
You have to see, mamash, he has a whole cheshbon, it's exactly a Kezayis.
Actually worth less. That's what it is.
Right. It's got exactly worth it's always worth a Kezayis. It's always worth a pruta. So he's making the same idea. The Aruch Shulchan says the same kind of idea, which is the amount you give has to be a certain amount, has to be something significant. He thinks it's a pruta. The Yehuda thinks that it's his share, what he thinks it is. But Kenzayin, Rashi's saying is that you do it is a Kezayis. That's also a reasonable amount to give someone something.
Don't change society.
Because?
Kezayis is not necessarily shaklit.
No. I'm saying two different things. I'm not saying that the Kezayis is a shavar pruta. I'm saying just like he tries to say a shavar pruta is because you have to give something of meaning, something of significance. A Kezayis is another version of something significant. They're just other people are just. I could use the word fishing. And the Sifri says you should give a Kedei Nesina. What's a Kedei Nesina? So either it's a Kezayis, it's a pruta, it's the Yehuda has his own thing. So now the truth is I don't think most people do not hold like the Yehuda, and we don't actually give it to a Kohen. The Yehuda makes his point only when you give it to the Kohen, but maybe it's some kind of a zecher to this point that the Sifri said you should give a Kedei Nesina, and somehow Rashi said that turned into a minig or whatever, a minig to say to give a Kezayis, that it should be a significant amount to give. Okay, that's one possibility. Another possibility is the Minchas Yitzchak brings, we're going to talk more about this Minchas Yitzchak soon, Minchas Yitzchak brings from Maria Sad, who says that the only time there's a mitzvah to burn challah that's tamei is if it's a Kezayis large. If it's not a Kezayis, then there's no mitzvah to burn it. And therefore, that's what he says. Now, therefore, maybe the reason why people are mafresh of Kezayis is because the din is, there's a din to burn truma, burn chal that's tamei, and therefore, since that din only happens if it's a Kezayis big, so the reason why you give a Kezayis is not because it has to do with Hilchas Challah, so to speak, it has to do with, you want to do the mitzvah of burning the Challah, that's another mitzvah you're supposed to do to burn Challah that was tamei, and therefore, in order to do that, they want to be mafresh of Kezayis, in order to be able to accomplish it also, otherwise they would just burn the garbage. So, in order to be able to do that also, they say, let's be mafresh of Kezayis, they could do that also. Okay? So, now, of course, Rashi and the Maril, and nobody said any of these kind of anything like this. It would, to me, it's a little bit big. If you want to read it into, if you like that, to read it into the Ramah, because the Ramah says the din is you could take a mashu, and you're supposed to burn it, but the minute gets to take a Kezayis. It seems out of order. It should have said that the din is you can take a mashu, the din is take a Kezayis, and then you burn it. Why did the burning get before the Kezayis? Okay, the Kezayis is sort of out of order, so according to this, that would be the reason why. He's saying the din is take the mashu, but you're supposed to burn it. Oh, if you're burning it, that's why the din is take the Kezayis. Okay. You could like it or not like it. Okay. So, we're going to come back to this din of being hafrashah Kezayis. The end of the Ramah said that when you burn the challah, you make oisel hesed b'fnei atzma, you make its own little fire to burn it because you now have enough from it. So if you use it as like a fuel, then you're going to be having enough from it. So make its own little fire. And he says, v'noigel hashlich l'tana koydin shayfen hapas. Okay, so that if you would read the Ramah alone, if you just read the Ramah, you would read that as one long sentence. You should not. You have to make it a hesed b'fnei atzma, and you would read it as, and the way we accomplish that, the common way of accomplishing what I just said to you is to throw it into the fire right before you bake the bread. That's how I would have read it if I was just reading the Ramah. It would have been, the noigin is the continuation of the first sentence. Okay, it's not true. Okay? That's not the right way to read it. Because if you look in Dakimarshi, you'll see that there's an extra sentence in between those two halves of that sentence. There's an extra few words in between those two halves of the sentence. And what he says is really, what the Dakimarshi really says is that Yesh Omrim, that when you burn the challah, you have to make it hesed b'fnei atzma. That's the first thing, the first shita. Yesh Omrim, you have to make it hesed b'fnei atzma. That's his first thing. He says, but that's not really the din. That's not really what you're mechuyev to do. It's a big chumrah, the chalas chutzor, to be machmer, to say, make it a madur finaza, and therefore, all we do is, we throw it into the fire when we're about to bake it. Okay, so the noyagin l'hashlich l'tana koydin shayfen hapas is not the continuation of madur finaza. It's not the description of madur finaza. It's arguing on madur finaza. Yesh Amr, you have to make madur finaza. Don't be so serious. Don't be so worried about it. Don't make madur finaza. Just burn it, throw it into the oven when you're baking the bread. Okay, so the Ramah is, the noigin is a kula. It's, v'yeshem, you have to be very machmer, the noigin to be makel, and just to throw it in when you bake the bread.
The reason we can do it with the would be to not have Mishnah.
I'm about to explain it. Yeah, it's not having, no, the Ramah says it's not having, no. The Yishol Asilaharis Minna. Okay, so the reason for this minute, for this kula dik minute, the Aruch HaShulchan explains, I think that's what elsewhere also, the Aruch HaShulchan explains, the pshat is like this. If I make my own fire, that I can be sure I'm going to have no hana. I take the bread, put it outside, put some twigs around it, light it up, and it burns. So I'm obviously not having any hana from it. If I throw it into the fire in your oven, you're potentially going to have hana from it because it'll be extra fuel in your fire. So what the minig is, when the Ramah said the minig is to put it to the fire, koydin shayfen hapas, he means immediately before you bake your bread. Immediately means is the fire is a big raging fire. At that point, you're about to put the bread in. It's a big raging fire. Therefore, you're going to get no hana from putting this in the If you did it at the beginning, or you put a wire in the middle of other things, you could get hana from it. But like this, the fire's already big and gold, so you're going to throw it in. So what are you going to get? It's a drop. It's going to add to it. You threw your little Kezayis worth of dough into it. It's going to add a drop. It's anyhow. There's other fires anyhow. So for that much, for chalas chutzor, you don't have to be machmer. Okay. So the cool is. The Yesh Amrim said, no, you have to make it madur finaza, you're going to get the tiniest bit of possible hana from it. The Yesh, and the minig is, don't be so makbid, it's chalas chutzor, don't be so makbid on it, throw it in when you're about to bake the bread, that's fine, that means the fire is big enough already at that point, and you can throw it in. Okay, now, this whole chashash, the direct chashash that the Ramah talks about is not negated to us, okay? When we burn challah in I don't mean when you burn watermelon seeds, when a chana burns watermelon seeds. I mean when you burn challah like we do it, you take the ball of dough and you throw it into the oven. So we, in our ovens, they run on gas. We don't gain anything from the extra little fuel that's in there. We have a thermostat, so you mamish gain almost nothing. So it's mamish like what the Ramah says. Anytime you throw it into the oven, it's mamish like what the Ramah says is, it's like cutting the shayfen hapas. It's like immediately beforehand, you mamish, you get come out nothing, and that would be fine. Which is what people, from that part of it, that's okay. The little bit that you have to concern is that Lamaisa is the challah you threw in has the status of truma that's tummy, and the zar is not allowed to eat it. So if you throw that into your oven, a kain, that's true. Yes, I'm sorry. Right, nobody can eat it. Yes, nobody can eat it. So when you throw it into your oven, then you want to make sure that you're not getting blias of that dough into your oven. Okay, we talked about this in Tafton Aleph, and at the beginning of Tafton Aleph and the end of Kuf Yud Gimel. That chalas chutzor is an example of something that needs to be kashered after. one of the two main examples we have of a Issa D'Rabbanan She'ein L'Ikam Min HaTorah. If you remember, that's what we talked about then. The special kulas about how we kasher after an Issa D'Rabbanan She'ein L'Ikam Min HaTorah. It's like a made-up Issa D'Rabbanan. And so you have to, that's why people wrap it into foil. Okay, you wrap it in foil because you don't want to get blias from this dough into the walls of your oven. Okay, if you throw it into your oven, you don't want to get the blias from there into. You wrap it in a piece of foil. There's no blias from mikli l'kli. You just throw it into your oven. Okay, now the Rama didn't say that. The Rama didn't say and wrap it in tin foil before you put it into. But so he obviously wasn't so concerned about that. But that's what we do. We wrap it up, and it's common. People wrap it, close it completely because you don't want reicha to come out of it. If the reicha would come out of it into the other food, it would not be a problem with the oven. It's dry and. But the minute what we do is you take the dough, put it into a piece of foil, and wrap it up, so there's no blias into the floor of the oven that it's sitting on because the two kalim are touching each other. It's separated by the foil, and there's no reicha coming. There's no zay, of course. There's no reicha coming out of it because it's enclosed on all sides.
Some people wait to burn it with chametz.
No. We're going to talk about that in a second, actually. I didn't think of that example. I never heard of anybody who waits for that. But no, you should not do it. Okay? Wait to burn with the chametz. I'll talk about that. We're getting
just some people not so concerned about blias.
But yeah,
it's not so.
Then the stockade is put on the pizza bakery. They just put it on the plate on the floor.
Okay, so the Rama says that. The Rama says. You throw it in.
When the fire all the day, they didn't put the bread there. It was underneath, it was placed on the fire.
And therefore what?
There's no blias there.
Because you're saying that place made no difference. Where it was touching, where the fire was not where the food was.
Right.
Okay, and where the fire is, it's going to kasher itself also. It's not terribly serious. What would you kasher your oven if it became chafed from this? What would you do? You turn it up really high and let it burn for a while. You know, so right. So it's not terribly serious, but that's why people put it into foil. I mean, maybe they do for cleanliness also. You know, they don't want to make a mess in their oven, but they do it because they want to. I think because they want to avoid blias.
I'm saying that they use a fork to pull it out afterwards.
Well, afterwards it's fine. Afterwards you can do it. I mean, it's not right at that point. You don't have a problem once it's burnt up.
No, that's another thing. So sometimes, it's a fat piece of challah, it's burnt, so the outside it's like black, but it's not.
I don't know. In my house,
it's not cold.
In my house, it stays in there until it's so burnt that the smoke alarms go off. So usually we don't have a problem of getting it out. Oh my gosh, someone took it out too early. It's like 2 weeks later, someone remembers. Oh my gosh, we have challah sitting in it. Okay.
That's what we do.
Okay. So the last thing you have to talk about is the Rama. I told you so far two things that the Rama said. I told you there are two things that the Rama said. One is the minig is you take a Kezayis, and the second is that you have to burn it. Okay, that much the Rama sort of didn't make it up. That's the Challah or you have to burn. That's why it's called Challah or you have to burn it. Okay. Well, and in fact, every fine Jewish housewife does exactly that when she's mafresh challah. Okay, what do? They take a chunk off, roughly a Kezayis. I don't know if they're trying to make a Kezayis. They take off a nice chunk of dough, and they burn it. That's what they do. And everything's beautiful. Except, when we are mafresh in a tevel batter, we've talked about this the first time, a tevel batter or tevel matzahs, we don't do that. We're mafresh. The standard way of doing that and those things, when we do it remotely. We say that the batter that's sitting there, we're going to make a hafrashah. We make a batter of a gram. Okay? In the OU, they used to do a gram. They decided, well, if you do a gram, you only get this many leashes that you can be mafresh from. So they cut it down to a fifth of a gram. Okay? A fifth of a gram. Now, I'll tell you, what we're hopefully, if you see here, this, okay, don't hold me to this. This is about a Kezayis. Okay, this one is about a Kezayis. Okay? And this is a gram. Now, this is a gram of matzah, and this is a fifth of a gram. Okay? So a fifth of a gram, if you want to see the math later, it's a piece of matzah about a half of an inch by half of an inch. Okay? And a gram is about 2.5 inches by half an inch. In dough is lighter, it might be bigger. Dough is, I don't know if it's denser. We'll have to try it out. I'll have to go to the bakery. I don't know. So, but what it is it's so to speak, I can't imagine that it's a Kezayis. I mean, maybe if you hold a really small shear, then you think that it's Kezayis, you know what I mean? But I don't know if anybody eats that. That's not a pretty small amount of matzah. So what happened? The Rama said the minig is to be mafresh Kezayis. What happened? And what happened to the second half? I can't say this is not as widely accepted. Okay. This is not as widely accepted as the other thing, but most people don't end up burning the stuff at the end of the year. Okay, we're going to talk about eventually you have to take the batter, either it's used up or the year ends, you have to take that batter and you have to get rid of it. The batter, the tevel-dough, well, it's not tevel anymore, or the tevel matzah. So most people don't burn it. Well, why not? That's even a mishnah. You have to burn that stuff. I didn't say everybody. You do. Don't start with David. But Lots of people don't burn it. When the year comes out, they take it to the garbage. Whatever they do with it, they wrap it.
Industrial stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking about people use the Hafrashas system. They use the tevel-dough.
They're not people, they're haters.
Agent. But the people, agencies are made up of people. They're not these monolithic things. Like, they're people. What?
Meaning not people in that private home.
Right. No, I'm talking about the tevel-dough system. That's what I'm talking about, the tevel-dough system or the tevel-dough system. So some of the RCs who take care of this are very on top of it, and they pick up the dough at the end of the year or the matzah, and they go make sure they incinerate it, or they send it to Mosheva. But lots of them tell the company, well, just do it 5 pounds of matzah.
Send it to where? Mosheva.
So what do they do with it? They throw it out. They say nothing. Throw it out. Okay. So what happened? Okay. So now you might have thought that according to the minhag chassidus that I told you beforehand, these two questions can answer each other. Remember, I told you beforehand, the minhag chassidus brings that there are some Rishonim hold, that's probably not the din, but some Rishonim hold the only chiyuv of burning is if you're hafrashah Kezayis. So, by being hafrashah less than the Kezayis, we don't have to burn it. So we solve both problems at once. If we're hafrashah a piece like this, then we don't have to burn it. So we solve that problem. We answer the question and answer each other. We hafrashah small enough, and then we don't have to burn it. We solve the problem. But what's wrong with that is that's of course that's not correct, because when you say that if you have less than a Kezayis, you don't have to burn it, it means that that's what you had. If you hafrash a Kesayra, a little piece of this is a Kesayra. You hafrash a Kesayra, you may not have to burn it. But of us, after a couple of leashes, you got a whole Kezayis. It just builds up on top of it. So of course that's not going to be the answer. Okay? So the true answer, I think, is Shasa Prakta Yevdami. We're stuck. The question is, how come the hafrashah we make is just a gram? This is how much we're mafresh at a time. When the Ramah says you have to be mafresh a Kezayis. So why aren't we mafresh a Kezayis? We do it remotely. We say, every leash they make will be mafresh. Why are we mafresh a Kezayis? Ramah says that's the beginning. It's a mafresh a Kezayis. So the answer probably the truth is, that it's a shasat. If you had to be mafresh a Kezayis each one, so a tevel box of matzahs, instead of having a box of matzah has 454 grams. So instead of having either 450 leashes or 2,000 leashes if you do a fifth of a gram, instead, what would you get? 30 leashes out of it? How much would you get out of this box of matzah? So all of a sudden, just think of the technical complications of having to have so much tevel in the plants, having to keep putting new stuff and this and that. So we say, what do we do? The ikar din is you could do with the mashu. You could do mashu kasayra. And this is bigger than the kasayra. Look, this is a kasayra, this is a kasayra, this is a piece of a fifth of a gram. So you say, you know what? That's the ikar that you're supposed to do. We weren't even too sure where Rashi got this from, that you should do Kezayis anyhow. So fine, we can't do the minhag. What can we do? So I didn't see anybody really who said, if it's a shasat chag, just be mafresh kosher. Probably because it's not such a normal situation. In your home, most people are not so careful that it bothers them to mafresh a little piece of dough instead of a little. It's hard to imagine. I did see, I believe, I'm almost sure that I saw Shom Zalman who's saying this. He says, the Ramah who says you should be mafresh, the minhag is taking Kezayis, he says that's when you're taking it from the full batter. He says, what happens if you bought a roll in the bakery and you want to be mafresh challah, you want to be careful, so you want to be mafresh challah, even though they said they were mafresh challah, or you think, whatever it is. So you have a whole, you buy a roll, take a Kezayis out of the roll, you're not going to have much left to eat. He says, then you could be someone who can do the ikar din. Okay, that's like the closest I saw to someone saying something like that. Okay, so now, the truth is, the truth I told you in the minhag chassidus is really about the second half of the question, which is, how come we don't burn the challah? And his tshuva was like this. A person said to him, he said, it's really hard for me to burn the challah. Okay, I don't know what the reason is. Maybe he says, I don't think he says it. It's really hard for us to have to burn the challah. Maybe it was like a commercial kind of a thing. It would be very hard to burn it. He said, could we be some of not burning it? The guy wanted to say is maybe we'll put it in the garbage and they can incinerate it, or I'll wrap it twice. He says, maybe I can get away with not burning it. Is it okay if I get away with that without burning it? So the Dayan says, the Gemara says, Keshem shemitzah lisref kachim, shenitmu, kach mitzvah lisref truma shenitmeis, and most Rishonim take that Gemara at face value that says that there's a chiyuv specifically to burn truma tvei or chal, that's something, and you're not allowed to do other things. You're not allowed to be kover. You're not allowed to do other things as a way of getting rid of it. You must burn it. He said most Rishonim say like that. He said, but there's a sheet of Rashi that says no. When the Gemara said you have to burn it, it didn't mean you have to burn it. Burning is just an example of getting rid of it, and really any other way you can get rid of it. And the reason, all the Gemara meant to say was, you got to get rid of it mishum takala. If you don't get rid of it, someone might eat it. So you should burn it as a way, the Gemara really means to just say is get rid of it before someone by mistake eats it. But really, any other way of getting rid of it is also, so you want to throw it in the garbage, that's fine. Wrap it up for shouldn't be that nice in the kachim, but basically you can get rid of it any other way you want to. So, Dayan Weiss says, listen, most Rishonim don't hold like that. I mean, he himself struggles with that Rashi really holds like that altogether. But he says, okay, let's accept that Rashi holds like that. He says, Ulai, you can be samech on this for Chalas Chutzarts. If it's a Shas of Chak and it's Chalas Chutzarts, you can be samech on that sheet of Rashi and say, you can get rid of it without burning. Then, that's the bulk of the tshuva. Then he says, this idea that people wrap it up, I later saw that it comes from a Chazon Ish. Okay, Chazon Ish says about Truma. Okay, I told you this before. Someone wrote a thing, Zell Shapiro. He wrote in the 1950s. He wrote pamphlets of practical halachas of Trumas and Maisus and Shvias and things like that. And they're not around. They're printed in the back of Derech HaMunah now. In each chelik has the part of that pamphlet that was there. And that thing was printed in the lifetime of the Chazon Ish and approved by the Chazon Ish. Okay? So it has a certain authority to it, very practical. It's very halacha l'maisa, it's very short. Very to the point. So over there it says that if you have Truma Tahira, you could wrap it up and put it in the garbage. If you have Truma Tameya, you have to burn it. So the Chazon Ish there is saying pretty straight out, well, this person is saying from the Chazon Ish, that if you have Truma that's Tameh, you do not have an option of throwing it in the garbage. Now, so Dayan Weiss says, I have to tell you something. He says, I understand why people extended what the Chazon Ish said by Truma, from Truma Tameya, from Truma Tahira, even to do by Truma Tameya. He says, I get that. He says, I understand why they did that. And the reason is because most people don't know enough to figure out whether the Truma is Tahir or Tameh. Okay? In order to be Tahir or Tameh, what it really depends on is did it ever get wet? Was it Huchshel Kabbatumah? Most people don't know enough to decide whether it was or was not Huchshel. Or did it ever get wet so that it could then be Kabbatumah? Most people don't know enough about those didn't to know that. And therefore, we have a choice. Either we could burn everything, which we might be burning Truma that's Tahir. Or we could bury everything, we might be burying Truma that's Tameh. Each one has a potential downside. So to be safe...
What's wrong with burying Tameh?
Because the din is you're mechuyev to burn it. You're not allowed to just bury it. You must burn it. So we have each side has a potential downside. So of those two choices, it's better to wrap it and throw everything out rather than burn everything. Okay, if you're going to make a mistake, it's better to do this way than that way. He says, but that makes no sense for challah. Challah is always huchshel kabbatumah. Because you mafresh challah if you mix flour with water. And you mafresh challah, the flour itself was tempered, it got wet. He says, so it's always huchshel kabbatumah. It's come out in every single case. It's huchshel kabbatumah. He says, so it makes no sense that by challah people should wrap it and put it in the garbage, except that you're going to be samach on this Rashi. He says, fine for challah chutzar. If you're shas of chak, you could be samach on that Rashi. What? Rashi that says that when the Gemara says you're mechuyev to burn it, fla dafka. You just have to get rid of it mishum takol. Okay? So but the truth is, that's what he brings from the Chazon Ish. But the truth is, the Chazon Ish, in his farm says not like that. In the so to speak real Chazon Ish says not like that. And others bring it. It's in Shmir Shabbos. If you want to see it there, they bring it this way, and others say the same thing. Chazon Ish says, he says, the din is you're mechuyev to burn it. That's what you're mechuyev to burn. Truma that's tahar, you have to burn it. Truma that's tameh, you have to burn it. That's the din. But if you have a situation where burning it is going to be very difficult, and in other words, that's going to cause delays, and you're going to potentially not burn it, and it's going to hold it around, then the concern of takala, the reason why you burn it is not because of takala, but the concern of takala, that someone might mistake eat it, overrides the concern of burying the truma, and therefore you're better off getting rid of it, that you avoid takala rather than burning it. Now, the burning it means it's going to take me another day to get something to burn. I have to find some wood, I have to get myself together to burn it. And by doing that, I raise the chance of takala, someone's going to eat it. You're better off being concerned about the takala than about the burning it, and that's what you should do. And you should wrap it up. The Chazon Ish happens to be talking about truma, but that same svara applies to challah also. Okay, the way Dayan Weiss had said it wouldn't apply to challah, but what the Chazon Ish really says, in his svara, is that when you're really stuck, it's okay to burn it. It's okay to just throw it out, wrap it and throw it out, because mishum takal. To avoid the possibility of somebody eating it, it's kedai to do that, and that's why what you said before about people holding it till Pesach, okay, is against the spirit of what's going on over here. Holding it till Pesach is just increasing takala. Of course, you realize that what we do if I'm trying to say to you is that we're being soimach on this idea, which is when you're stuck, you don't have to burn it. And when you're shas chag, don't be hafrashah Kezayis, just hafrashah amashu. Okay, but you realize that we're a little bit, if I could use it, a little bit playing a game, which is we're saying is we're stuck, and therefore we throw it out. Therefore we throw it out instead of burning it. The Chazon Ish said to do that to avoid takala. Yeah, well, the Chazon Ish would not have approved of leaving tevel and challah sitting around in a bakery for months on end.
That's don't leave it around. Burn it now.
Burn it every day. So in other words, every day this commercial bakery makes it.
About a commercial situation.
Yeah, I'm talking about tevel. I'm talking about when you.
What's the conversation? What did he say?
What was the situation that person? He said one of the places he says the guy doesn't have any wood to burn with. I don't know what the, for us we don't understand that because for us we just throw it in the oven. But maybe he means what he's talking about truma. So what it means from mafresh a bunch of apples. What am I going to do with apples?
You talking about
No, he's talking about truma. I have apples. What am I going to do with the liquid? He says what about liquids? I think one of them said what do I do with the liquid? How am I going to burn the liquid? So it's a whole thing. I was just mafresh bananas. Okay, so how are you going to burn the bananas? You have to come up with some idea how you're going to burn the bananas. Now, we think about challah, every time you bake challah, you're sitting by the oven. Open the oven, throw it in. Big deal. Okay, but he's talking about truma. So, but we're applying that and saying is we have the same situation.
I don't want to compare that. I don't
because?
Like comparing truma to something which is edible to raw dough.
Because why?
Who eats raw dough?
You're saying you don't have to be concerned if you use a tevel-dough, there's no kashrus of takala because no one can eat this big blob of dough sitting in the freezer. Okay, I can accept that. In matzah, it's not true.
Right.
Companies that use tevel matzah is not true. But if you're right that we don't have to worry about someone eating it, then come the end of the year, then we don't have an excuse. Then we don't have any takala. You're answering why we don't have takala for the months. But come the end of the year, you suddenly, so what are you waiting for? Go burn it.
Fine.
You don't have any excuses then. You don't have this chazon of maybe someone can eat it. Okay, that's fine.
Go burn it every day. Before.
Because the whole idea here is that the bakery is remote. There isn't someone who's being mafresh remotely. The bakery is 500 miles from here. And we every day say we're being mafresh on every batter that they make, we're being mafresh from this piece that's there. We're not, if we were standing there, we'd just pull the piece and throw it in the oven ourselves. The whole idea is to do it remotely, is to do it from a distance, because someone isn't there. But so what really should be done is at the end, someone needs to take it back and go burn it.
That should be a big deal. The mashgiach should be going to the plant, so have him arrange a visit at the end of the day.
And what should he do then?
Take the dough and burn it.
Well, it's easier said than done. I mean,
They're not going to let you both throw stuff in the oven.
It's in their oven.
It's not there. Take it with you. Burn it somewhere.
If you want to volunteer, it's not an easy job to burn this big blob of dough. It's not an easy thing to do.
I have one in my oven.
See, okay, so. Okay.